Magandang araw, Transform Church, at sa lahat ng sumusubaybay sa atin sa pagbabahaging ito ng salita ng Diyos. Last time, we looked at the 10 plagues and we saw how God moved powerfully to save His nation, Israel. Ngayon, we will back up a little bit bago mangyari yung 10th plague. At titingnan natin ano yung nais ng Panginoon na gawin ng bayan ng Israel upang alalahanin ang kanyang pagliligtas para sa kanila. Ngunit bago yan, tayo muna ay manalangin. Panginoon, maraming salamat po dahil tunay nga ay ipinapakita mo ang iyong kahanga-hangang pagliligtas para sa iyong bayan. Kaya naman po, kami ay lumalapit ng may pagpapakumbaba sa iyo. Santong Espiritu, buksan mo ang aming mga puso at isipan upang aming maunawaan at maisabuhay ang mga katotohanang nasa iyong mga salita. Panginoong Hesus, maraming salamat po dahil sa iyo ay may ganito kaming relasyon sa Panginoon. Relasyon bilang bayan ng Panginoon. Ito ang aming samot dalangin sa pangalan ni Hesus. Amen at Amen. The title of our message for today is The Passover. And we will look at ways kung paano nga ba natin inaalala ang kaligtasan ng Panginoon. But before we begin, let us have this group activity. Paano po yan? Una, choose an object that has a special meaning to you. Ano yung bagay na merong sentimental value sa iyo? Look around you. And give some time para sa leader ng grupo ng pakikinig na ito na maghanap ng mga bagay na yan. And then, gather together once again and share to the group yung storya ng sentimentality or anong event na nagbigay ng meaning para dyan sa bagay na napili mo. Isa-isa kayo sa grupo. And then, what do you appreciate about each other's story? Answer this question. Ano yung na-appreciate mo sa kwento ng nanay mo, tatay mo, about, or ng mga anak, about this object na merong value para sa kanila? Okay, sige. For example, ako, no? So, syempre pa, itong singsing. Ayan. Bakit may sentimental value to para sa akin? Dahil tuwing nakikita ko siya, itong nagpapaalala sa akin ang pag-iisang dibdib namin ng aking may bahay na si Charis. At kagaya ng singsing, ay walang katapusan. Ayan. Ang pagmamahalan para sa isa't isa. And also, I remember the story nung pinapagawa namin yung singsing na ito. Okay, no? So, saksi si Pastor Mike, no? Si Ninong Mike, sa pagpapagawa nito, siya yung tumulong sa amin para makapagpagawa ng singsing na ito. Hindi ko makakalimutan dahil nung tinatanong na nung jewel maker, or ano ba yun, alahero, kung ano yung pangalang ilalagay sa loob ng singsing, nagulat talaga si Cha na ipapalagay na pangalan ay Charis Felix, no? And I remember that day, no, when I look back to it, na she was shocked na hindi na Charis Baez yung ipapalagay, kundi Charis Felix na this is a big transition for her kasi yung identity niya is magpapalit na. Hindi na siya, well, nandun pa rin yun, yung pagiging Charis Baez niya, but in addition to that is she will take on my name, my family name, as Charis Felix. And that, for me, that event, no, na na-shock siya. Kasi ako, parang pupunta lang kami doon, papagawa ng ano. And na-postpone yung pagpapagawa namin ng singsing. Until naka-get over siya na, nga, iba na pala yung magiging buong pangalan niya, may kasama ng Felix. And that, for me, that sign, ito, no, na magpapaalala sa amin from that time forth, sa kasal, kung saan isusuot namin ito sa isa't isa, na hindi lang yung relationship namin nagbago, but also our identities changed, no? And kaya naman, napakahalaga ng singsing na ito para sa akin. Now, I want you to pause this video and do this activity as a group or as a family. As we study Exodus chapter 12, isa po sa ma-observe natin bago ibaba ng Panginoon ang 10th plague na magdadahilan sa pagpapalaya sa kanilang Ehipsyo mula sa kanilang bayan, is God established a sign for their salvation. Basahin po natin. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, "This month shall be for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell all the congregation of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, every man shall take a lamb according to their fathers' houses, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his nearest neighbor shall take according to the number of persons. According to what each can eat, you shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male a year old. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of this month, when the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill their lambs at twilight. Then they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the flesh that night, roasted on the fire, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted, its head with its legs and its inner parts. And you shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn. In this manner you shall eat it, with your belt fastened, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. Mga kapatid, makikita po natin na bago gawin ng Panginoon ang ultimate act ng kanyang pagliligtas para sa kanyang bayan, He instituted a sign for them. Ano yung sign na yun? Kailangan nilang mag-offer ng sacrifice, no? Kung saan ay papatayin ang isang batang tupa na walang blemish, walang bahid ng kahit na anumang imperfection. At kukunin lang ilan sa mga dugong ito and they will papahirin, no, nila sa kanilang mga doorpost, kagaya niyan. At ito ay magsisilbing senyales sa Panginoon na kasapi ng kanyang bayan, kasapi ng kanyang pagliligtas ang mga nasa loob ng bahay na iyon. And He will pass over them. You see, mga kapatid, why is God doing this? And instituting a sign suggests some things about the way na gusto ng Panginoon na mag-respond ng kanyang people sa kanyang pagliligtas sa kanya. Yung pagbibigay ng sign means na this must last beyond that very night, that very day. Na may mga bagay na dapat magtagal, na dapat gawin ng kanyang bayan na lalagpas pa mula sa gabing iyon. Ano yung ibig ko sabihin? Kagaya po ng kasal, no? Kagaya ng activity natin kanina, yung pagbibigay, yung act ng pagbibigay ng singsing, ibig sabihin, may susunod na kabanata. Yan. May greater purpose yung araw na yun. Yung araw ng kasal. Hindi yung araw ng kasal tapos. No? Hindi. It will be followed by a lifetime of living together. A lifetime of marriage. Of being one flesh. Yun po yun. And then you have a sign para maalala yung covenant na ginawa. The same thing. And as we go along this message, let me suggest 3 things Tatlong rason bakit may sign ang Panginoon para sa kanyang pagliligtas. At tatlong bagay na gusto ng Panginoon na gawin ng kanyang bayan as an act of response sa kanyang pagliligtas sa kanila. The first reason why there is a sign, ano yung gustong response ng Panginoon sa kanyang pagliligtas, is that the nation of Israel, ang bayan ng Panginoon, to remember ang kanyang kahangahangang ginawa. Sabi po dito, "This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord. Throughout your generations, as a statute forever, you shall keep it as a feast." So, Memorial Day daw po. Araw ng pag-alala. And these are the things that I suggest na inaalala ng bayan ng Israel as they celebrate a meal with special importance. No? Kung titingnan nyo po, pagkain ito, di ba? Nagsasama-sama ang pamilya at ang kanilang kapitbahay, kung konti lang sila, upang kumain. At kalakip nito ang pag-alala sa pagliligtas ng Panginoon. And I suggest, ito yung mga inaalala nila. Number 1, yung roasted lamb. Habang kinakain nila yon, it's to remember na may sakripisyo para magkaroon sila ng dugo na magiging senyales, magiging sign ng passing over ng Panginoon, upang ang Panginoon ay mag-pass over para sa kanilang sambahayan. And then bitter herbs, no? To remind them, to let them remember of the bitterness of slavery in Egypt. I remember nung ako po ay nasa Bible school, no, sa aming seminary, sa IGSL bilang estudyante, when we celebrate the Passover, pag kinain namin yung lamb, may sinasawsaw din kaming bitter herbs, no? Na sa salted water. Ayan, no? And pinaliwanag sa amin nung aming professor na nagli-lead nung celebration na ito, na yun daw ay nagpapaalala ng bitterness ng slavery at yung saltiness ng tears ng mga tumataghoy na slaves sa Panginoon. Yung, I believe na yung salted water is a later development nung celebration na ito ng mga kapatid nating Messianic Jews, and also, syempre, yung mga Hudyo, sineselebrate din nila ito. But still, the essence is there. They remember the bitterness of slavery in Egypt, of their former life, nung kanilang nakalipas na buhay. And then, unleavened bread. When you read the New Testament, yan, kagaya ng the Gospels, the unleavened bread, or yung tinapay na walang lebadura. Ayan, tama ba ako sa mga bakers natin dyan sa church? No, yung yeast ay lebadura. Okay, no? Yan daw ay nagsisimbolo ng purity. No? Kagaya ng warnings ni Jesus Christ against the yeast of the Pharisees, yun ay yung grace ay dapat walang kahalong legalism. And then yung sa writings naman ni Paul to the Church of Corinth, na dapat walang yeast of evil doon sa purity ng community, suggest na ang understanding ng pagkain ng unleavened bread is the purity and solidarity of God's community. Kung saan ang kumakain nito ay yung bayan na iniligtas ng Panginoon. Ang kumakain nito ay yun lamang mga taon under the protection of God, at yung dugo na ipinahid sa kanilang mga pinto, doorposts, no? Ano ba yun? Yung parang haligi ng kanilang mga pinto. Ayan. Yun lamang ang kumakain ng bread na ito. Okay? And then, yung dressed for a journey, kung saan dapat nakasinturon sila, nakasuot ang kanilang sandals, and meron silang staff, nung handa na silang maglakbay, ika nga. And also yung manner of cooking, na yung lamb ni roast lang. Yung bread, wala na tayong panahon para paalsahin yan. No? And yung bitter herbs, these are kung anong meron sila, no? Yung pagmamadali sa pagpe-prepare ng meal na ito ay nagpapakita ng decisiveness of God's salvation. pagbaba ng 10th plague, si Pharaoh at ang bayan ng Ehipto ay pinalayas sila mula sa Egypt. And yung start ng kanilang journey towards the promised land. No? So these are the things that I suggest, no? And I believe there is good reason na ito nga yung kanilang inaalala as they celebrate, as they remember through a meal yung ginawa ng Panginoon para sa kanila. So that's the first reason kung bakit nag-i-institute ang Panginoon ng sign. Naglalagay siya ng sign para sa kanyang mga pagliligtas. The second reason why there is a sign para sa pagliligtas ng Panginoon at ano nga ba yung gusto ng Panginoon na gawin ng kanyang bayan para sa kanyang pagliligtas sa kanya is to celebrate. Sabi po dito, "This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations as a statute forever. You shall keep it as a feast. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven out of your houses. For if anyone eats what is leavened from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. On the first day you shall hold a holy assembly, and on the 7th day a holy assembly. No work shall be done on those days, but what everyone needs to eat, that alone may be prepared by you. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this day I brought your hosts out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations as a statute forever. In the first month, from the 40th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. For 7 days no leaven is to be found in your houses. If anyone eats what is leavened, that person will be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is a sojourner or a native of the land. You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your dwelling places, you shall eat unleavened bread." Di nga po mga kapatid, karapat-dapat naman na ang pagliligtas ng Panginoon ay i-celebrate ng kanyang bayan. Ipagdiwang ng kanyang bayan. At yun ay naalalang i-celebrate ng kanyang bayan through the sign. No? And here, ang emphasis ng sign is the unleavened bread. Kung saan, for 7 days, yun lamang ang kanilang kakainin. At kung sinong lumabag dito, he will be cut off from the nation of Israel, from the people of God. You see, mga kapatid, ito po ang nais ng Panginoon na gawin ng kanyang bayan para sa mga hanga-hanga niyang pagliligtas. To celebrate that salvific act of the ipagdiwang ang pagliligtas ng Panginoon. Kaya po mga kapatid, sana po naunawaan ninyo bakit tayo nagdidiwang, no? Tayo, no? Anong meaning ng pagdiriwang para sa atin? Na kapag pumupunta kayo sa church, hindi lamang yan, it's a chore to do. No? Hindi lamang yung pag-aawitan, pagkakantahan, pagsasayawan is something as a duty. No. It is a response dahil niligtas ka ng Panginoon, ipinagdiriwang mo ang kaligtasang ito on a regular basis para sa bayan ng Israel once a year, 7 days in a year on the first month. Para po sa atin, tuwing nagtitipon tayo, no? Tuwing tayo nagkakasama-sama, we celebrate the salvation of the Lord. And then, finally, hindi lamang po to remember, to celebrate, kundi also for participation. To let the next generation participate doon sa karanasan ng pagliligtas ng Panginoon. Sabi po dito, "Then Moses called all the elders of Israel and said to them, Go and select lambs for yourselves according to your clans, and kill the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and touch the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. None of you shall go out of the door of his house until the morning, for the Lord will pass over the door and will not allow the destroyer to enter your houses to strike you. You shall observe this rite as a statute for you and for your sons
forever. And when you come to the land that the Lord will give you, as He has promised, you shall keep this service. And when your children say to you, what do you mean by this service? You shall say it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover. For He passed over the houses of the people of Israel in Egypt, when He struck the Egyptians, but spared our houses. And the people bowed their heads and worshiped. What do I mean participation? What do I mean to participate? Una po mga kapatid, to participate means participation in the community. Sila ay bahagi ng komunidad na iniligtas ng Panginoon. Pangalawa, participation in God's act of salvation. Mga kapatid, as they celebrate ito pong Passover, yung old generation, ipinapasa yung kanilang experience sa kanila. Paano? By eating the same meal. Sa pagkain ng same na kinain nung mga ancestors nila na nakalanas talaga nito. And by doing so, they are part of it. Bahagi na sila ng pagliligtas ng Panginoon. At hindi lamang yan, bahagi na rin sila nung komunidad na iniligtas ng Panginoon. So, in summary mga kapatid, itong nais ng Panginoon. Pinapakita yan ng pag-iiwan niya ng sign para sa kanila. Nais ng Panginoon ang kanyang pagliligtas, unang-una, ay inaalala. Inaalala throughout the generations ng kanyang bayan. Alalahanin ang pagliligtas ng Panginoon. Pangalawa, hindi lamang inaalala, kundi mag-celebrate. No? Ipagdiwang ang kanyang pagliligtas. Ipagdiwang ang kanyang kahanga-hangang ginawa. And then finally, hindi lamang po yun para sa first generation ng mga nakaranas, nakakita ng pagliligtas ng Panginoon, kundi ito po ay naisasalin from one generation to the other through their participation in this meal. And my dear friends, that leads us to, so what? Pastor Jong, ano naman ngayon para sa amin? No? Para sa atin, na mga Kristiyano na? Para naman to sa mga Hudyo or sa mga Israelites, so to speak. My dear friends, let me share to you that this story and this sign continues unto us today. Why? Because the Apostle Paul claims that Christ is our Passover Lamb. Sabi po sa 1 Corinthians 5:7, Christ, our Passover Lamb, has been sacrificed. Mga kapatid, and seeing na kung paanong si Yahweh ay iniligtas ng kanyang bayan sa Ehipto through the 10 plagues, kagaya po ng message ko rin last week, tayo po ay nakaranas din ng dakilang pagliligtas ng Panginoon through our Lord Jesus Christ. And in the same way na nakita natin ngayon sa Exodus chapter 12, nais ng Panginoon na ating alalahanin, ipagdiwang, at tayo'y mag-participate, maging ang susunod nating mga henerasyon sa kanyang ginawang pagliligtas sa pamamagitan ng ating Panginoong Jesus. Mga kapatid, kasali ba tayo sa ginawa ng Panginoong Jesus? Yes. Sa pamamagitan ng pananampalataya, tunay po. Ngunit hindi lamang yan. Dahil may pinagkaloob din sa atin ng Panginoon that lets us participate sa pagkain na naranasan ng mga disipulo bago ibagsak, bago gawin ng Panginoon ang ultimate act of His salvation. Kung paanong kumain ng Passover meal ang first generation bago bumagsak ang 10th plague. Ang Panginoon po ay kumain ng Passover with His disciples bago siya ipako sa krus. That's why, my dear friends, when we eat of the Lord's Supper, we remember, we celebrate, and we
participate.